we have been discussing the drama Abhignana Shakuntala. In that drama, I have already spoken about the plot and the characters of the drama. Yesterday, I was dealing with some of the important themes of this play, and we have already covered almost 90% of the drama in its discussions. So, the theme of love, romance, theme of the conflict between love and duty was over yesterday, and the description of nature, theme of the description of natural world, that is we have seen yesterday, and also the theme of supernaturalism and the theme of fate. We have seen these themes in the last lecture. Now today there is one more important theme which is left to be discussed, and that is the theme of prophecies and curses. Our epics are full of prophecies and and curses. These prophecies and curses show certain supernatural powers, certain great mystical powers of the various sages, which they have got through a lot of penance and with the blessings of God. Usually these prophecies and curses, or rather we can call them even as boons and curses. Prophecy is something different than boon and curse. Boon means what we call in our Indian language as varadana, vara kododu. It's usually positive blessing. Curse, we know, it is negative. And prophecy is foretelling. There is some event which is going to happen in the future, and with some mystic power, I know it well in advance, and if I tell that, and if it comes true, then whatever I am telling about the next incident to happen, that is what is called as prophecy. Interestingly, this theme of prophecy is not just seen in the Indian epics or Indian dramas, it is also seen in the Western dramas. For example, the next play that we are going to study, that we have in our syllabus, Sophocles' Oedipus Rex or Oedipus the King. This drama also has this theme of prophecies, and there also it is Tiresias, a blind old man who is equal to our sages. He tells something to King Oedipus which comes true in the later part of the drama. Here also in these epics, it might be the stories of different characters from Ramayana, Mahabharata. Prophecies are told and they come true most of the times. So here in this drama also, taking this tradition from the epics, Kalidasa has tried to show how certain people like sages had the power of prophecy and how it came true. So there is this theme which is reflected in the drama in certain incidents. First episode wherein we see this theme is when Dushyanta goes to the ashram of Kanva. He is chasing the deer, and Vaikhanasa, an ascetic, a sage, comes and tells the king, please don't kill the deer, because this deer belongs to the hermit of Kanva Rishi and it is a sacred animal, or it is an innocent animal, please don't kill. Then the king understands the significance of this ashram animal, and the king does not kill the deer. Looking at this, Vaikhanasa is happy at the behavior of the king, and he blesses the king, or rather he tells the king that he will be blessed with a baby boy who will be of a great stature. He will be a powerful son who has the stature of a world's king. And later this happens in act number 1, and we see the result happening in act number 7 when Dushyanta sees Sarvadamana. Now we have to understand even the significance of this name, Sarvadamana. Sarvadamana means the one who is almighty or very powerful, and he can destroy everyone. Sarva Damana. That does not mean that he will literally destroy everyone, but he has that power to destroy others, or anyone cannot stand his strength. So when Dushyanta sees this boy Sarvadamana, and when he later comes to know that he is his own son from Shakuntala, he remembers this prophecy told by Vaikhanasa. So this prophecy is coming true. He is a very powerful child. Then another another incident where prophecy comes true is the curse of Durvasa. Durvasa curses Shakuntala and Dushyanta because Shakuntala had forgotten to treat him properly, and he tells the one about whom you are thinking should forget you. And this also comes true in the later course of the drama, which nobody can avoid. And this is very important here. If some prophecy is told, if some curse is given, no character can avoid this curse. They have to suffer for at least some time, and maybe later they can overcome, but it is bound to happen. And this is what is important for Kalidasa when he has considered this theme. Then there is, now we may call it evil omen, or we may call it superstition, blind belief. Like our ancestors had their own blind beliefs, or rather I would like to say that it was rational in their times, which is not rational in today's times. So we call them blind beliefs. For example, don't go outside during the night time because the ghosts will chase you. Now we know that there are no ghosts and it is all a superstition. But our ancestors, why did they come with this kind of a superstition or this kind of a belief? In their time, during the night time, there were no lights on the streets. So there were dangers around in the night time. There were snakes crawling on the streets, on the roads. There would be wild animals coming out in the night time. So because of all these dangers, they made it symbolic, and they told that ghosts will catch you if you go out in the night time. But now today, we see the lights even on the streets, so we know that ghosts are not there and there is no danger. So you should not go out, the ghosts will catch you. This statement looks like a blind belief today. Kalidasa has also, now we have some more beliefs like trembling of the eyelids or the sound of the lizard. There are so many beliefs around us. We still consider them in Indian society, Indian tradition. In a way, Kalidasa has tried to focus even on these evil omens. For example, when Shakuntala goes to meet the king Dushyanta in his court, her right eyelid trembles and she considers it as evil omen. She predicts that something bad is going to happen, and it happens. What is the bad incident there? The king has forgotten everything about Shakuntala. Shakuntala did not know about the curse, in the drama at least, but she considers it as a bad signal or evil omen. So like this, there are these themes which are combined together in this drama, Abhignana Shakuntala. So this theme is another important theme. Further, there is this interesting theme of concealment and separation. You know what is concealment? Concealment is hiding, and also separation. Now concealment and revealing happen together in the drama. For example, in the first act, both Dushyanta and Shakuntala have fallen in love with each other. But are they telling their feelings openly? No. So they are, for the first time, in the beginning at least, they are trying to hide their feelings. And this concealing is because of some fear, because of some insecurity. The Dushyanta doesn't know how Shakuntala will react to his proposal, or rather how Kanva Rishi will react to his proposal. Shakuntala is not sure how Dushyanta will consider her, whether he will consider or reject her. She doesn't know. So this feeling of insecurity, this feeling of unsureness, this is what leads to concealment, or want they want to express but they are not able to express their feelings properly, so they are hiding it somehow. So in act number 1, the concealment is in terms of the hiding of the feelings of love from each other. Later in the third act, they both reveal their feelings to each other and then they marry. And even their marriage happens not in the open like the public marriages today. Their marriage is also a kind of concealment. They are marrying in Gandharva style. Only the husband and the wife are marrying. Nobody else knows about their marriage. So it is a secret marriage. So in this way also there is concealment of marriage or a relationship. Now what is the reason for this? Maybe the king did not have much time to spend on the ceremonies during that particular moment, so he just wanted to make that marriage happen in a short time, then later he would come, or other things. Because of this reason, even that marriage is in a kind of concealment. It is a secret marriage. Then there is one more concealing, or one more fact that is hidden until we come to know it in the act number 5. What is this? Here, the fact that the ring was eaten by the fish when she was traveling in the river to meet King Dushyanta. How she lost that ring? When she lost that ring, was she really aware of the loss of ring? All these facts are kept hidden until the point where the fisherman comes and reveals everything about the ring. So this fact is, the fact of the ring is concealed in order to increase curiosity among the readers. So this is also another way he has expressed the theme of concealment. And then concealment of king's identity. In the first 2 scenes, the king is not readily telling his identity. First he tells that he has been sent to the ashram by the king when he himself is the king, but he is not revealing his personality or identity directly. But eventually all these concealments or all these hidden facts are revealed slowly as the course takes place in the drama. Then even Shakuntala is taken away by the nymph. Dushyanta doesn't know where she is gone. So she is also hidden from Dushyanta's view in act number 6. Later they get reunited. But this is very interesting. Why does the writer want to hide certain facts? There are lots of options we can think about. This is majorly an element of drama which can increase our curiosity. For example, in the first act, when the king is not ready to tell his name to the Shakuntala, we are curious to know what will happen next. Whether he will tell his name really. Although we know the story from Mahabharata, we are still curious. What is going to happen in the drama? How will she react if she comes to know that he himself is the king? So all these curiosities take place only with the element of concealment or hiding certain things, at least in the beginning. And one more thing we have to understand, this concealment is not a harmful one. He is not hiding the facts in order to tell false things. He is hiding the facts only to reveal them in the later stage, only to retain the curiosity of the audience. So we can take this concealment or hiding of the facts as something positive in this drama. Further, there is theme of separation. I have already discussed the concept of viraha, or the separation, pain of separation of lovers, how it combines, clashes with the feeling of love and togetherness, and at the same time love in times of separation, both are combined together. Shakuntala and Dushyanta have to separate. It is not that they want to separate, away from each other, but their responsibilities, their respective responsibilities, hers in the ashram and his responsibility in the capital, these things make separation a mandatory thing in the drama. The king has to go back to the kingdom, and Shakuntala has to remain there in the ashram at least until Kanva comes back. So their duties hold them back, and this leads to separation. So initially when they come together, they are again separated, and in the fifth act, when Shakuntala goes to the court of King Dushyanta, again we are thinking that they will now come closer, but at the same moment they are separated once again because the king is unable to recognize Shakuntala. So they are away from each other until the end of act number 7. So even separation is important for Kalidasa to enhance the beauty of romance that comes at the end. We have to think the amount of happiness, if they are together throughout the play, will be different, and the amount of happiness which they feel at the end after a long time of separation is greater than this happiness, and this happiness can be enjoyed more by the audience. That is why the theme of separation was also important for Kalidasa, to give an enhancement to the feelings of love, romance and happiness which come at the end of the drama. With this, I come to the end of discussion on this drama, Abhignana Shakuntala. I recommend you read the original text of the drama, which has been translated. I have this version. Of course, there is another version which is available. This is a translation into English done by M.R. Kale, a very popular edition. Then there is one more edition which was published by Oxford University Press. You can go even for that version. But I recommend you read the original text to have the feel of the drama, and you can enjoy the outburst of various emotions that Kalidasa has tried to share or try to bring out in this drama very effectively. Thank you so much.